practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the drill partner is perfect for you.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Dogging It, brought to you by Seybert. Hey, Melina Mike, have you used that drill partner? Are you up to like a 400 Fargo now?
This is how you're starting the show, man? Really? No, I have. I have actually, and I also sent it to my buddy Little Chris, who's going to help me come up with we're going to collaborate on a video to showcase the drill partner. So I'm excited about that. I don't think I told Sandra and them. Little Chris is obviously he's the best pool player I know, Joey Ryan. Yourself included. So
that's hurtful.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Lil Chris lives in I don't know if I should give out his location. Anyway, last time I was in his hometown, I stopped in and challenged him on his 8-foot table at his house, and he spanked me. So maybe he is the best pool player you know.
I don't think it's a maybe after he wins, buddy.
Well, playing your house table and it's an 8-footer, there's got to be some advantage there.
Easy, Mike. Easy, buddy.
I'm just saying what you guys always say when you talk about, home field advantage and playing in somebody's.
Well, yeah, that's fine as long as I'm not needling Joey. Then that point works only unless I'm needling Joey.
Check out Sydney's comment. The Three Stooges. That's awesome.
I like it.
What's up, Garrett? Hey, Rick.
I gotta figure with the hair. I'm Larry.
Yeah, let us know if you can hear us okay, see us okay. I'm sure my camera will freak out in a minute. I've been having some camera issues. I got a new cable coming today. Should fix it though. But man, we got a lot to talk about really over this World Championship. What an amazing event. I can't remember a time where we had an event like this. There's been a lot of great events over the last few years, but with the run that Mohamed Soufi made to get to the finals, it was just astonishing. It was one of those things in sports that you tune into, you get excited about, you watch it, and it's almost like you can't believe it. You can't believe it's happening. I remember when he made like the final 16, I think it was, and I was like, could this guy really go somewhere? And then I watched his match. He got a little fortunate, and I'm like, nah, probably not to the finals. Then we bet against him every single round, and he ends up making it to the finals. It was just a remarkable run and something that gives you goosebumps to really think about.
Yeah. Amazing story, which compounds it, it makes it even cooler. Oh, and there goes Joey.
Told you. Hold on.
Right on cue.
Backup plan.
Right on cue.
I got a backup plan. There we go.
Yeah, no, he was just, and he just enjoyed every moment. So you had to latch on to him and his style of play. I mean, everything about it was just, how could you not watch this kid play? It was great.
As the event went on, like Joey said, watching the guy play, there was a couple of times when I'm sitting, in my chair thinking to myself, who the F is this kid? Seeing some of the shots that he made, some of the choices, the powerful stroke, so many things that just lend itself to being captivated by the guy. And then you found out bits about his story as the event went on as well. And when you paired all that together, along with the unknown, that's when you fell in love, it felt like.
Yeah.
Kudos to Phil Yates for getting that information out of him. You could tell that his English wasn't the best, like when Carl was interviewing him live at the event. But Phil must have done some digging and some investigation and had some translators, something to really get his story out there. And, I met Phil, Mike Pinozzo, you introduced me out in Vegas, and I'd never seen the man, and so I know he catches a lot of heat from the American players. We're always,
he's very smart, very well read. He injects a lot of that into his commentating, references, historical things like that. But he loves sports, and he's a journalist at heart, and so he really knows how to find a story. I think Al Youssef was his translator when he really sat down with Soufi and did the kind of in-depth interview about his background. But yeah, Phil's a professional. He's a professional all the way.
100% professional. And when he, like, during Mosconi Cup and other events, when he's kind of ribs the Americans a little, I think all the U.S. fans are like, oh, this Phil Yates guy. But he is a consummate professional. The color he adds during the events, it's something you can't appreciate unless you've really tried to do the job, or unless you've listened to other people who just don't do it very well. To come up with the stuff that he does, it takes homework. Like, he does his home. Melina Mike could never do that job. He never wants to do homework. He just wants to show up. He just wants to show up in his Yankee cap and just expect to just knock it out of the park. Phil Yates prepares and does a great job. And
he's professional.
And really, that added to the whole story with Sufi. If we didn't know all those details, we just saw the Syrian flag next to his name. For all we knew, when the tournament started and he started winning some matches, he's a guy who lives in Syria, and I didn't even know they played pool in Syria. And then you find out he's really living in Germany and he's a refugee, and that whole story to get there, it really added to that event. It was big kudos to Phil Yates for getting all that information.
When you're playing Francisco Sanchez Ruiz and the crowd is pulling for you, that you're something special, because nobody roots against FSR.
Nobody.
So it's great. It was made for great theater. Part of me really would have loved to have seen him win, just because it would have been just so off the wall unlikely.
We reached out, and we are reaching out, and we're going to try to get the kid on the show with the translator. But we are going to vet the translator this time, because last time we had a translator on, it didn't go so well with the Coe brothers. So there's going to be
Did you see that interview, Pinozo?
No,
we were out in Vegas. We interviewed the Coe brothers in Vegas, and I really think that Big Coe spoke more English than the translator. It was crazy. Yeah.
Without a doubt.
It's like getting Rolando to translate for Efren. I mean, it's like, there's about a 2-word difference between them. One's like a 440 Fargo on English. The other one's like a 450 Fargo on English.
Yeah. We are working on them, and we're excited about that. But on the note of his play and rooting against Francisco, I'm going to argue that kid had chances to win, and he should have won. And I thought especially, the first, midway through that match, if we're already jumping into the final, I thought that kid should have easily been up around 7-4, 8-4, somewhere around there, maybe even more. He had a lot of opportunities, and I saw Francisco struggle in that first half of the match, probably more than I've seen him struggle in the last 12 months. So it was something special.
Yeah, we scratched on the break 2 or 3 times, right?
Yeah,
consistently.
Yeah, it was something where, if you noticed, when his cue ball went side to side on the break, it would always have that downward English that would take him to the bottom corners, whereas Francisco had the opposite type of English on it. But I agree with you, Mike. He was right in this match, and he started strong. And then the middle of the match comes, and you see Francisco kind of start to settle in a little bit. But he still gave some opportunities up that he wasn't giving up in other matches. Right. And then Sufi, he's hanging in there. And when Fran gets up, on the hill, you're like, oh, this is over. But then Sufi gets back to the table, and he wasn't dead. He had a chance there at the end, and I'm like, is this really happening? And so I'm sitting there pulling for him, and my wife's like, you're rooting for Sufi? I thought you liked Francisco. I said, I like them both. I like their stories. But what I'd really like to see is Hill. That's what I was rooting for. And I really didn't care at that point who won it. But, just a awesome event, awesome storyline. I want to talk a little bit about Sufi's style, because
I'd like to talk about his style too, and we'll see where this goes. But
it's not often you see someone, especially nowadays, everybody seems to have coaches, or they have, there's a common theme about, technique, and, yes, do you pause? Do you not pause? But for the most part, most of the strong players these days have pretty much the same technique. And his was just so unique and so interesting to watch. I heard people talk about it online, for the last 2 days, like, man, this gives me hope, because I don't have perfect technique, And so I was like, how cool is that? That the guy is so supremely talented that even without perfect technique, not even close to perfect technique, he's doing it in the world championship, the biggest stage. So I thought that gave a lot of players hope, and it proves that if you have something that works for you, there's something to that, right? Sure, he could rebuild his whole, fundamentals and try to be more like a Tyler Steyer, a Fedor Gorst, or somebody like that. But I don't think it'll suit him. What do you guys think?
What, Mike?
It's not a matter of suiting him. It's I watched him play, and who I kept thinking of was Vivian Villarreal in her heyday, because she was a two-stroke shoot. Get down, look, two-stroke shoot, race around the table. She was the same type of way. But the thing that I wonder with this guy is he had this magical run, but with his style and with his choice, things like that, is this more likely to be a
One-hit wonder,
or does he look like the type of player who can consistently give people a run for their money?
I'm going with that one.
You guys would know better because Joey, you're over 720. So, no, you're not. Okay, well that's why I didn't know you before this.
Mike's gonna kick you off the show, Joe. Mike's gonna kick you off. You didn't know that.
We got at least have a 7.
That'll be like pretty flattering.
But real pool players would have to know whether this looks like type of style type of play that can be consistent, or whether he's going to have to get a little more consistency in this game, because he got away with a few, along the route, or he could have been out of this tournament a lot earlier. So, I enjoyed watching him play, but that's one thing that stuck in my mind as I was watching him.
It completely goes against anything you've ever been taught when it comes to pool. If you've ever had any kind of coach or trainer or anything, or seen one of these robots play pool, but it works. It works for the guy, and I think it's the old adage: if it's not broke, don't fix it. This got him to where it was at. I think it puts a lot of guys on tilt because it's not it being unorthodox. Plus, he doesn't necessarily take always the right shot, which can kind of, frustrate some guys and maybe put them on tilt a little bit. We brought up before we went on the match with Albin where he certainly got away with a lot, but that's part of the Cinderella story, right? And it wouldn't be the same if it didn't happen the way it did.
Yeah.
But that's also part of what a lot of times ends up being the flash in the pan thing. It's like, okay, he caught lightning in a bottle for X number of days and got away with a match that he should have never. Well, I mean, he could have won that match either way, but I mean, he got away with a few. He double banked 2 or 3 balls in, and poor Albin. I mean, he just talk about being on tilt. I thought he handled it pretty well, really, because it was almost comical at that point.
One of the things I think he did this at the World Championship on tough equipment. This wasn't like the Cajun Classic bar box 9 ball. No offense to that event, but this was a legitimate professional top of the food chain event. And so I don't think this is going to be a flash in the pan. I think we're going to see this guy for a while. And if the story is true, which I have no reason to doubt it, that he couldn't afford to really get practice time in before his events in the past, and now he's got a little bit of money in his bank account, and he does have the time to practice and kind of refine his technique. And when I say refine his technique, not change it, but just get better at what he does.
Right.
I mean, he could be this guy could be up in the top echelon of pool players. One thing I thought that was, I think, the most unique thing for me about his play, he took a little bit of time to look at the shot. But then once he got down, you mentioned earlier, 2-stroke in Pinoza. We use that term a lot when somebody plays fast or maybe shoots like they're out of rhythm or something, like real quick. But he literally did 2-stroke. It was like boom, boom, and his shot was off. And so I thought it was really interesting because it just showed how accurate he was when he did get down. Even Jeremy and Carl are like, if he just took a little more time, and everybody's trying to slow him down. Everybody's trying to change who he is. But man, he got down on that ball and it was like, you better not, turn your head for an instant because he's shooting it right away. I even made a mention to you, Melina, that there were a few times where the cue ball's rolling and he gets down to shoot the next shot. And I'm like, this referee's going to have to make sure that he doesn't actually foul by hitting the cue ball before it's out rolling. And it was when he got on that roll, 5, 6, 7, 8 ball. And then the one thing that really struck me that I thought was interesting, and this is why I think he's not a flash in the pan. If when Fran was on the hill, he had a chance to get out a game and he got completely out of line. It was like a big scramble, which a lot of his racks were scrambles. And sometimes it did catch up with him a little bit in certain racks, but he gets way out of line on the 9-ball and he's got to back cut this thing like 90 degrees in the corner pocket. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my gosh, the world championship's going to end on him hanging this 9-ball and it's going to be devastating. And sure enough, he just gins it right in the corner. And so he didn't fold under pressure. In fact, he might have even played better under pressure. So I'm really excited for what this guy can do in the future. I think it's going to be really fun to watch. And the fact that he got in those 2 Matchroom events, the Championship Pool and the Whirlpool Masters, we're going to get to see a lot of them. And I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, no, that's going to be cool to see. It's he's got to be on cloud 9. I mean, he went from the nobody to being the darling of the pool world, and all of a sudden get all these invites from Matchroom. That certainly will help improve his practice time. And I think the places that he practices will probably now give him some free table time.
Yeah.
So there's a great opportunity. It should be a lot of fun watching to see what he does. Someone mentioned earlier kind of an Omar Al-Shaheen, fast, fearless, smile on your face, that type of thing. So we'll see if he's got that type of talent.
I thought of Omar too whenever I seen the kid play, and it wasn't because they're from the same area. It was because of the way that he hit the ball. Yeah. And if he's playing that free and with that kind of execution on a Matchroom stage with those bright lights in a world championship, the possibilities are going to be endless for the kid. I feel like, I think about when I think about the Federers of the world, like how their mechanics, weather the storm for them when it comes to pressure, right? Because they take in the pressure and they're nervous too, but then they fall back on what they've been taught their entire lives. That kid didn't seem to get rattled. Now, I know he missed some balls, but it didn't seem like he missed for the sake of nerves, because he looked very loose, very free. His charisma, his charm, so many things, lend itself to root for the guy. I thought after we saw Shane win the world championship last year that, there's, no story can be as good. This was pretty darn close for my money. What a run for this guy. And I think he made, fans out of majority of the pool world who were just rooting for him. And like Mike said earlier, it's hard to get people to not necessarily root against Fran, because I don't think anybody was, but just to have competition when it comes to being a fan favorite, as Francisco is as well.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's really the only story that could have overshadowed the big story, which to me is Francisco Sanchez Ruiz. I won't say Reyes or whatever they were saying on the broadcast, but Ruiz, and the way that he has just been so dominant. I can't stress that enough. If you look at his results in 2022, coming into this event, who picked him to win this one, by the way? Who was that?
Oh, jeez, front runner.
Yeah, I think it was me.
You so the best guy on earth to
You went out on a limb. What I'm trying to say is that, like, when have you ever been able to say definitively that this player is going to win a world championship and feel really good about it? There's just so many great players it could be, but I felt really good about it. And then when you looked at his matches, the matches he was winning when he was front runner, or he'd be down like 5-2 or 6-2, and then just turn it on. And like Jeremy and Carl said, nobody right now is better at putting packages together than FSR. That's what's doing it for him.
That's the key, because he trailed in a number of his matches, but none of them, he didn't have any hill matches through the whole tournament. But there were a number of matches where he trailed by 3 racks, maybe 4 racks, and nobody goes from 3 down to 4 up faster than FSR. I mean, he just catches that gear, and it's, you had your chance, you're gone, see you later. And he did that to a number of people. I was watching the Chang match, and he's down 3-0, should have been down 4-0, and Chang missed. Next thing I turn around, it's 9-3.
9-4 was the final on that one. We got it up on the screen now.
Final, but it went, it just went by in a blur.
11-4.
So yeah, that round the quarterfinals was a really good round of pool. Sophie's match against Albin was, inspiring, comical, entertaining. It was everything, unless you were Albin. Then it was just depressing. I really thought Niels was going to get to the Final Four. I thought he had a shot in that match. As an old guy, I was pulling for him. But that's 2 years in a row Final Four for him. I mean, how strong is that? And then Francisco just blazing past Chang was pretty impressive.
It's just Francisco being Francisco at this point. His domination isn't something that we've seen, like this with this caliber of players that are in the field. I think it's him and everybody else at this point. And I'm not, it's not breaking news because it's blatantly obvious. He can sit your ass down for a long time with this play. He's exciting to watch. When he's got an opening, you just know he's out, and he gets there and he does it. And if he's not out, he can put you in jail. He's got a number of different tools to beat you with, whether it's safety play. He can be patient. He's not pressing. That match with Sufi was the first kind of wrinkle I've seen in his game in quite some time, in that final early on. But besides that, I mean, the guy was as flawless as you can ask for. And I remember watching that match with Sufi, or maybe it was a match with Mario as well, and it was somewhere around like 7-4, 7-3, and I said, I don't like it. I don't like my guy in that spot, because I think Francisco can come back from anywhere. Yeah. Anywhere he can come back from. I've been saying this for the last, 6 months plus, that I think his break is the best in this format, and you pair that with how much he can hold his nerve together. I mean, it is unbelievable to win. I want to say at least the last, besides the international, the last 3-4 majors. Yeah. Being now he's the world 8-ball champion, the world 9-ball champion, wins the U.S. Open, and that's just part of his accomplishments for this last year. It's Francisco's world right now, and you're gonna have to stop him. And I don't think Albin can do it right now. I don't think Shane can. Mario, as much as I love the guy and he was knocking on the door, he let one get away. I don't see anybody beating this guy right now, with the exception of if Federer gets more time on a matchroom stage. That's the only guy that I would see having a shot. But right now, it's Francisco's world, boys.
Yeah, I agree with that. And from this set of 4 matches here that we have up on the screen, one thing I want to talk about is really the way Mario played throughout this event. Obviously, you have FSR, you got the Sufi angle, but Mario, he was down in almost every match that I saw him play, and he dug deep, and he came back in some of these matches. I remember looking at the scores and saying, oh, well, it was a good run for Mario, better luck next year. And then all of a sudden he came back and won, and it just happened time after time. And I'm like, man, this guy's really digging deep here. And he had a really good chance, I thought. So I was really impressed with his play. And also I was very surprised after this 11-4 victory from Wu. I was very surprised that he went down to Sophie the next round. And if you look at Sophie here against Albin Ocean, everybody in the world, including all of us on the pre-show when we were talking about it, we thought that was kind of a bye for Albin. We thought he was going through directly. Obviously that didn't work out that way. He loses that match. And so then you're thinking, oh, well, Sophie puts together a nice win versus Albin, but now he's got Wu. Right. And Wu's been beating everybody. Right. So, nothing's going to happen there. But then, they'll scroll down, and here's the matches from the semifinals where Sufi beats him 11-6, and Francisco slips by Mario 11-8 after trailing in that match. So, how surprised were you that Wu went down there?
Well, I'm surprised that he went down that way. I mean, he was really pushing everybody. If he wasn't beating, he beat Kwok bad after Kwok beat Shane.
He stole something.
Yeah. And you just kind of thought that was going to be a pretty close match. You didn't see Sufi really blazing past anybody because he just seemed to be, he went hill with Barkowski. He went hill with Mika. He beat Albin 11-8 with just kind of that miracle finish. So, you just expected close matches from him. You expected him to be in dogfights and have fun doing it, but he steamrolled. Ooh.
There was just so many matches that were compelling. We highlighted earlier that Niels and Mario match. That match's finish was unbelievable. Mario's match in the prior round, like Kathy Joe says, against Mario was one of the best. Mora and Mario, one of the best matches I've seen in at least the last year. Yeah, baby, you can. Sorry, my daughter came in. One of the best matches I've seen, including the finish. John is. I mean, I hadn't seen John play that well on that stage. Okay, look, she's hitting you. Tell her I'll talk to her in a minute. I haven't seen John play that well in quite some time, with that kind of consistency and holding his nerve together. That guy was just an absolute monster against Mario, and he should have won that match for my money. And
he played a great match right before that against Jason.
Yep,
beat Jason. He was really solid in that match. I loved watching him play. I was really pulling for him to make a deeper run too. You're right. I think he should have gotten by Mario.
Yeah, no, John, I think is right on the cusp. He's right on the cusp of winning one of these or maybe finishing second in one of these. He looked great out there when he beat Jason. And then the very next round, he was in position to beat Mario and didn't quite get there. A little unfortunate there at the end, but great.
And he's going to have consistency with the way he was breaking the balls. And I think that when you marry that with how much that John can execute because of his gambling prowess, John can be dangerous on a matchroom stage, it looks like, when I didn't think he would be before. But that break was the real deal from John, the real deal. Like in that top 5 of breaking in this format. I mean, it was unbelievable. Because I think, and for me, I feel like he was a dog to Jason and a dog to Mario. So for him to, I know he beat Jason outright, and he should have beaten Mario, but to hold it together like that, that guy is trending way, way up right now.
Dosido says with 4-inch pockets, the results would have been different. Weren't they like 4 1/8? They were really close.
They were 4.
Huh?
I thought they were 4.
They may have been. They were pretty close. I mean, with the new cloth, sometimes they look a little bigger. There was some
right at the beginning. I thought I saw a picture of the corner pocket with a tape measure.
I think it came out to 4 1/8 though. I think Carl posted 4, but if you looked at the tape measure closely, I think it was 4 1/8, maybe just over 4. Don't quote me on that. But they were tight pockets. But when you get that fresh cloth on there, the ball especially, and Jeremy pointed it out with the pink. I think it was the pink 4 ball that Sufi missed out in the middle of the table when he was making that comeback. You remember that shot where he was up against the rail and he had to kind of cut it down? And Carl said it's never going to go in if you don't hit the center of the pocket on that shot. But when it goes down the rail on that new cloth, even on 4-inch pockets, it's going to take it pretty well. But
John came with shot after shot in that match with Mario. I mean, big shot, tough shots, consistently. It wasn't just it was a flash in the pan where he made one clutch shot. I'm talking about from the second half of that match to the end. I mean, he was just it just reminded me of like a heavyweight fight. Those guys were just boxing back and forth, trading blows. It was unbelievable. If you get a chance to go back and watch that match, I highly recommend it. One of the more entertaining matches I've ever seen.
Hey, check out Jennifer's comment there about the FSR banner at Derby. Melina, tell us that story about Derby for those that didn't hear.
No, I already got my ass. I get my ass chewed out the first 2 minutes that I'm there at the Derby by Greg's daughter. She's like, "Oh, you're Mike. You're the guy who posted that picture of us misspelling the banner." And I was like, "Well, it's nice to meet you too, ma'am." And then fast forward when I finally met Chad. As a matter of fact, I didn't know who he was. I thought his face was for somebody else. So the guy standing there for a minute while I'm talking, I think it was John Schmidt. And finally, Chad walks up to me and introduces himself. And I said, we're going back and forth for a minute. He said, "And by the way, thanks for posting that picture of the misspelling." And I was like, no problem.
Leave it to windows open.
That's what I'm here for.
Windows open, always putting their foot in their mouth. I think Mike's talking. You talking, Mike?
No.
Oh, okay. So the next real big event is going to be the Las Vegas Open, followed by the World 10 Ball, right? And I don't know if Sufi will make it over there. I'd love for it to happen. I'd love to meet him and just watch him play 10 Ball. You know, we don't know. We know 10 Ball is such a big part of the break is such a big part of the game in 10 Ball, and we don't know how he's going to break the balls in 10 Ball. Maybe somebody else does, not sure. But I'm curious your thoughts, Pinozo, on FSR and the World 10 Ball. I mean, could he pull this thing off? If he pulls this off,
it would be amazing. But
it's like the Triple Crown.
It is, that would be a Triple Crown. I mean, he's got pretty close to Triple Crown right now. If you look at, and I was looking at this before, the international I considered major, but you guys may not. But he did not win that. He finished, I think, 9th through 16th. But U.S. Open, World 8 Ball, World Pool Championship, 24-0. 24-0 in those 3 matches. He had 3 Hill matches in the U.S. Open. But in the World 8 Ball and the World Pool Championship, nobody even took him to the hill. 24-0, 3 of the biggest titles.
That's
probably, the money-wise, the 3 biggest titles of the year.
That's really remarkable.
In the last 6 months, he's done this. I mean, how ridiculous is that?
Yeah. I was looking at it earlier, and I was trying to figure, who do I remember dominating in the fashion that he's dominating right now?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember anybody having a run like this.
Not in the men's game, no. But I went back and I thought about our conversation about Allison Fisher, and I don't think he's quite, done what she did for so long. But it's reminiscent of the way that she dominated women's pool.
It's to me, it's kind of apples and oranges, because you're talking about Allison dominating a tour. Was there a year where she won the U.S. Open, the World 9-Ball Championship, and the Amway Cup or something in the same year? Did she have any of those, or U.S. or WPBA Nationals? That type of thing, where you take the 3 biggest tournaments and win all 3 of them. Because if I think back to 80s, late 80s, Mike Siegel, Nick Varner, they each had a couple of years where they won everything there was to win. But they were tour style, and they were all killer fields. They all had the best players in them, every one of them. But there was no, this is the $100,000 prize, and here's the next 100,000. They didn't have that type of tour where you had really clear, these are the 3 best tournaments, and everything else is kind of secondary. So it's kind of hard to compare those eras, and the same with Allison. But this, I mean, World 8 Ball, World 9 Ball, and U.S. Open, there's not a lot of debate over those being probably the 3 biggest tournaments of the year, prestige wise and money wise. And he won all 3 of them, going 24-0. I mean, that's a hard run to top.
That stat is sick. In this day, with these players and the amount of things that has to happen for you to win a tournament, that guy, that just shows where he's at. We've talked about for the last few years the run that Filler had. It don't compare. We talked about the run that Albin had.
Nope.
Like this. It don't compare. It does not. What Francisco is doing right now is really special. I've every event I've always felt like, okay, this is where he's going to fall off. This is where he's coming back to earth. This is where he's going to come back to normal, right? It's not. It's unreal what he's doing right now to his opponents. I can't wait. I can't wait to see the World 10 Ball, because I want to see him try to go for that. So if he wins the World 10 Ball, forget it.
Yeah, that's a mic drop. That's just retire. Go on to pickleball and be done with it.
It's done, son. Let everyone else have a chance.
One of the commenters says that Filler had a run like this, but I think the difference is not in World Championship events, right?
Yeah, don't lump his World Pool Masters win in there, or his
Euro Tour
and Premier League type thing. That you're not tossing those in with 128 or 256 man killer fields like that. So it's just It's a ridiculous run. And the
Hey,
cool
Federer was in
thing,
the U.S. Open. To that comment, Federer was in the U.S. Open.
yeah,
So I mean, I don't want to. I think it's
Try to
fair. I would love to see Federer in a lot more of these events, but the chance that he was in, you know, he
you beat who's
yeah,
there. These
right.
weren't like fluke fields or empty fields. I mean, one or two great guys are missing. The Chinese were missing from this World Championship. You're going to take anything away from Francisco? I don't think so.
yeah.
No, I don't think
So,
so.
Well,
yeah,
Jeremy's in here. Welcome, Jeremy. He makes a comment. That's why SVB, his runs lasted 15 years and is still going. And he's had a great run. But look at how long it took him to get a world championship. It just shows how hard
yeah.
world championships are to get. And this guy's working on a triple, right? If he can snap this
It's
thing off
just,
in a few weeks.
we're talking like two different things. Even Jeremy, you got to understand, because then what he's talking about with Shane is what we saw with Allison. It's what we
longevity and
just winning a major every year for 15 years or winning everything that you play. That's a different type of dominance. But to win, these three events in the last 6 months is just stupid.
Yeah. Hey, I got to make one more comment about this match, because as great as the Sufi story was, as great as FSR, in winning was, we talked about Phil Yates and what he brought to the broadcast, but Jeremy and Carl just knocked it out of the park. I remember I'm sitting there with my wife. She's not a huge pool fan, but she knows Jeremy from watching Mosconi, and she knows him from being the coach, the captain. And she's like, wow, he's really great behind the mic. And I'm like, yeah, this is the dream team of really broadcasting, I think. Him and Carl played off each other so well. Jeremy like taking the lead and Carl coming with the color. I just thought it was beautiful.
They work so well together. And I think part of it is Carl has really grown into that role of being able to flex between analyst and color.
Yeah.
So play by play rather and color analyst. So he can play both of those roles really well. So he and Jeremy aren't competing over what kind of English is going to be put on the next shot, right? Or what the guy should play. I think they really work well together.
Yeah, and the thing I love about Carl, it's going to come off wrong, but I like that he's quiet, right? He doesn't have to talk. He doesn't try to fill the air. He injects his comments when the time is appropriate, but he doesn't talk too much, and then when Jeremy takes the lead, he's talking about strategy and shots, and then Carl will come in when there's an opportunity. It was just a great job commentating. It made the match that much more special to me, and I just loved it. What are you doing, Mike? Why are you laughing?
Oh, I'm seeing Matt Boland's bring back Rolly. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no thanks. We're good.
You can't beat that combo. You can't beat that combo.
We're good. They're good. Yeah,
I'm serious.
Nah, Jeremy and Carl I can't add too much. Jeremy and Carl are amazing.
Yeah, and tuning in on YouTube and getting to see, who was it? Alex Lely commentate. I mean, he did a great job too. And I don't know if you remember when we had Emily on after one of their events, we said, hey, why can't we get commentating on table 2, table 3, all this? And at the time she said to us, well, we don't really want to compete with our main broadcasts, that's being shipped out on Sky and DAZN. But I guess they changed their mind on that because they had commentating on 3 tables, and I thought it was great. So I don't know if you noticed that.
Without a doubt. And it just shows that their openness to evolve, as much as people can say they can be stubborn or it's short-sighted way back when, they're obviously hearing feedback and continuing to add on to an already great product. I listen to a lot of that second table. I'm a big sucker for commentary from Alex. I think
he's great.
I think he's amazing. And the same with Carl and Jeremy. They really, some of the players I can do without, but that core that they got together with Matchroom is top shelf for my money. It's a good mix of color and insight, technical and keeping it light. Yeah, I got nothing negative to say about it.
Well, let's give them
find some argument.
Well, let's grab one thing negative about the event that we could put out there in case they were looking for feedback from this event. And let's talk about the break rule. I think they're getting closer, right? The break from the box, that little box that they have seems to be working well. You're getting a lot of random spreads. You're getting the cue ball flying around the table, the occasional scratch, which I hate that when it gets kicked in, but it's part of the game. But the break warnings for not hard enough, it just is way too arbitrary for me. I'm an analytical guy. I need parameters. And for somebody to break the balls seemingly hard and a referee to come up and say, excuse me, you're going to have to start breaking harder or it's going to be a ball and hand penalty, at critical junctures in the match. I just didn't like that. It didn't sit well with me. Thoughts?
Agree. I mean, you can't be arbitrary. It just doesn't make any sense. You have to figure it out. Either you're going to let them break to where they're going to break and just move on with the matches, or you come up with something else. The 3-point rule, nobody liked that, and that was awful. And I agree that should never be used again. By the same token, there were guys that I did watch walk up there and just kind of, slow roll a one ball in the side pocket every time. At the beginning of the Shane Kwok match, I immediately thought, wow, that's a pretty soft break there. But either you have something firm in place or you let it go. I mean, yeah. but arbitrary decisions like that's not going to help anybody.
Elena,
it's I think it needs to be taken out of that referee who's there doing the match's hands. Let it come from someone else. There's obviously someone who's running the shot clock, who's running, how many extensions they have on the TV table. Let it come from someone outside of that, and then let them make that decision. I don't want any referee being involved in it. I think it's an easy way to put somebody on tilt. And let's be realistic. If your plan is to use a magic rack, you're gonna always have a decent spread, even with a soft break, if the touch is there. Go watch Federer and Carlo play. Their match. Out at Rail Yard. I mean, it wasn't the softest of things, but you were still getting 3-point rules with a finesse break. It can come across as favoritism. Like in that Alex match, especially. I'm not saying Marcel was favoring Josh, but it was rough on the eye to go and see something like that happen. There's a comment in there about WPA rules. Matchroom don't give a shit about WPA, and they're besides the World Championship, they're going on with their life without them. So I feel like the 3-point rule isn't going to work for the average fan, and I like their decision to get away from it. But there's got to be some adjusting there, on that end, because
I like Garrett Williams' comment I have up on the screen right now. There has to be some technological solution, right? You can't have a jugs gun at every table where you're measuring miles per hour. But at this stage of the game where we are with technology, we should be able to calculate, something using some form of technology. How quick on the screen did it take the ball to get from A to B? Shouldn't be too hard to do with all the things that we have out there. And to me, that needs to be the solution. We need to work toward that. So hopefully some inventor or somebody is working on something like that, because this idea, I remember watching the match. I think it was Shane and Kwok in that match where Kwok gets a warning and she's given him the warning. And I'm thinking, does he even understand? Does he speak English? This would be terrible if he's getting warned on this and he doesn't. First of all, you don't know how hard is hard enough. And I saw people commenting like, well, just hit it as hard as you can. That's ridiculous. Okay. I mean, that's, bar table, eight ball in the bar, you're playing with your buddy. That's not professional pool. Professional pool, the break shot is an important shot. It's a controlled shot. Yes, I understand hitting it hard, but not as hard as you can. Nobody hits it as hard as you can. And so how hard do you have to hit it? And so I'm thinking there's a language barrier. This guy's getting warned in a critical moment against Shane on the TV table. I just didn't like the way that went about. And I thought there could have been a better way to handle that. Although once they were already in it, they didn't have the technology solution there. Yeah, I guess they did have to warn people, but I don't know.
I don't want to see technology and speed guns and ratings.
I don't want to see that shit either.
Stuff like that. I'm not into that.
Dinosaurs.
You can hit it harder and still cut break. You can whatever. I mean, there's pool players will always figure it out, but I don't think it's trying to have someone foul because there's some sign over on the side that said it didn't reach a high enough speed. I don't think that's the solution either. So until they come
Why
up
not?
Because I don't.
Why not?
Because I don't think the speed necessarily is going to determine if a break is hard enough. If a break does what you want the break to do, which is not coax a ball into the same pocket every time. I don't think that's the answer.
They're trying to control balls is what they're trying to do. They're trying to control balls to optimize their ability to run out. You want to change that? Go with the triangle rack because it'll be random. They're going to have a lot more unknown. You're going to see a lot more. You're going to see a lot more adjusting because once guys start getting slugged or things start getting a little gaffy, they're going to start changing their ways. I guarantee you they will.
I don't think they want to go back to the wooden rack either.
It's so funny. We keep going all these different ways, all these different angles. And I'm thinking, man, I love the fact that we didn't have, the ref racking because I've been a critic of that because, I told you I'm 50 years old now and just racking over the balls and trying to look down and see the cracks. I have a hard time seeing that from a foot and a half above it. And I can't believe a lot of the refs are older than me and they're there racking the balls. And I see people get slugged all the time. So, yeah. So somebody says, what's wrong with the 3-point rule?
Average fans couldn't get their head around it because they're wondering the guy made a ball on the break. Why is the other guy coming on the table?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. I've had to explain that to my wife.
Yeah. Or a guy makes 2 balls and because balls get kissed in a funny ways, a third ball doesn't cross the head string or whatever the case is. It just, you don't want to introduce stuff that you have to explain to people all the time. You should be able to see what's happening and know, that one ball.
So you're saying make it arbitrary. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, no, not at all. I don't think anybody should ever walk up and say you have to break it harder. That's the worst. But you're
not presenting a solution, Penoso.
Yeah.
You don't want technology, but you don't want them telling them
come up with a solution. They'd be using it right now. I mean, there's no perfect solution. Guys are going to find ways to manipulate the rack and make the ball that they want to make and get the spread that they want to spread. That's it. It's kind of almost fruitless at this point to just not let them do what they're doing. I mean, I didn't look like a huge break and run fest there. So what's wrong with it the way it was at this tournament?
Well,
the only thing that was wrong with this tournament to me was arbitrarily telling someone they aren't breaking hard enough.
No, I thought it was a good break rule. I really did, except for the fact that you couldn't police whether somebody broke hard enough or not. That's the only thing I didn't like about it.
Then that's a terrible thing to introduce if it's arbitrary. So.
And that's why I'm saying technology. They should have technology to solve it. Guys, let us know in the chat what you think. Are you on my side for technology, or you want to be with the dinosaurs over here who don't want any technology?
Dinosaurs says Mr. 50.
We're going to bring computers into the arena.
Look, Garrett's got my back.
Well, if you can't spell my name, he doesn't get the comment.
Okay, sorry.
That's an easy one.
I'm not. Technology's ridiculous because imagine making 3 balls on the break with the finesse break and then the guy doesn't get back at the table because it didn't reach 21 miles an hour. Give me a break with that shit. That'd be horrible, absolutely horrible playing 9-ball.
Yeah. Well, look, I think if you introduce technology, here's what I think. Okay, you have a threshold where if it's under a certain mile per hour, it's a foul. But then you have a gray area where you get a warning. Right. So I don't know what the numbers are. What's an average break? 25, 26 miles per hour. No, so maybe if it's 22 to 26 miles per hour, you get a warning. But if it's under 22, it's ball and hand foul.
I don't know.
You guys love it, don't you? I can tell.
No, we're just losing.
All right, let's get to the other piece. We beat this one to death. We'll have to figure that. We'll debate this another day. But here's one other thing to consider. Something that I just think might be an opportunity for improvement. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. 128 player field. It went down to single elimination at 64.
Don't like it.
I don't like it either. I feel like it should go down to single elimination at 16 or 32. What's the counter argument? What am I missing?
Mike?
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of the counter argument for other people would be, what other sport do people get two tries? In pool, it was essentially because prize money wasn't great and the promoters wanted to keep players around long enough. You wanted to give players enough opportunities to play. You play professional tennis, you lose, you go home. That's it. Pretty simple. You have a bad match in the third round, even if you're Djokovic, you go home. So, a lot of the argument from other people would be, why are you doing double elimination, period? So that would be the one argument. The other argument, I'm on the other side of it. I want to see it double elimination all the way to the final. I want to see the hard.
We've been pushing for that lately.
Well, just in one tournament,
Mike's a dinosaur.
I'm going to push the international to go back to double elimination to the final four, and then do a step ladder 4, 3, 2, 1. I think that's a good idea. But anyways, minimum 16. I think 64 is kind of a little too crapshooty in a race to 9. If you're going to start it at 16, if you're going to start it at 64, they did extend the race to 11 when they got to 64, which is a pretty decent race. So that's kind of, I guess it's not all
healthy.
Yeah, it's not that bad. I would prefer to see double elimination further, but that's the 1800s in me.
Yeah, I'm with you. 32-16. I love it. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. If you start any earlier, I mean, you start seeing guys really tense up when they don't have another barrel. It's a different type of event, especially as the races get deeper and deeper, or closer rather. I don't want to stay up to 4 a.m. watching matches. I don't. The way that it's ending now and it's more scheduled and controlled, that part I appreciate and love a little more. But could I have used one more round or two of double? Yeah, I would have.
Yeah, my favorite format is actually coming up. It's going to be the Champions League pool, kind of like a World Cup style, where you do a round robin and then you go into a elimination bracket. But I just kind of feel like if you're going to do 64 advance, you might as well just do single elimination the whole way, I feel. Or if you're going to have double elimination, then you take it deeper into the tournament. That way people have a chance to grind and get back in it. Just thought.
Yeah.
I feel bad for those good players that lost in the round of 64.
Well, I mean, it's
life. I know.
Yeah, it's life. I mean, like I said, if you're at a pro tennis tournament and Nadal loses in the round of 32, everybody would love to see him in the final. But because they have seeding and they try to, make the brackets more equitable, that's the chance you take. That not too many of these guys, in the round of 64, you're not having a 1 play a 2. So all
right, here's an example. I'll just go through and just handpick some names that went home in the round of 64. Chris Melling, David Alcade. Let's see, Loho Sum, Nick Vanderberg, Kazakis. Let's see. Some good players.
Well, there's a lot of good players in the
Gerson,
field. Look at the
Jungo, Tyler Steyer.
Yeah, but the one guy's been winning.
Hold on.
The one guy who's been winning everything is consistently there at the end. So I mean, it's kind of
Hold on.
tough to say.
Let me finish, sir. Joshua Filler, Sanjin. Let's see, Kachi, Shane Wolfert, Mickey Krause.
Wake me up when you're done naming 32 losers, Joe.
Robbie Capito, Hill. Lost to Dennis.
There's got to be a winner or loser.
I'm just saying, a lot of those names that I named, I don't know. I just feel bad that they went out in the round of 64.
I'll send them a card.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, I don't know which of those that I named. Here, I didn't do the research, but I don't know which of those I named were in the round of 64 from the winners. Those would be the people I feel sorry for, not the people who lost the first match and then advanced that round, right? I'd feel bad for the people who didn't have a loss and that was their first loss.
But they all played someone who did have a first loss, right?
Yep.
To get there.
Reseeding, reshuffle thing.
Get there, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And so, it's the guys who did lose only had to win the same number of matches that the guys who didn't lose had to win to get to 64, right? You just had to win 2 matches somewhere along the way. So they got some guys got 3 to win 2. Was that?
What's that?
The flow of the tournament was great.
It was
the matches I got to see on 3 different tables was phenomenal. The start times and end times, I loved it.
You did.
Yeah, I did love it. Yeah, I
4
mean, I don't want
a.m.
to
for
give up.
me, 6
I
a.m.
mean,
for you in Texas.
Joey,
Move
you
to the East
watched like
Coast,
one
Joe.
match the whole tournament. What are you talking about?
Because it
And
was
you
4
texted
because a
saying,
lot of them started at 4 a.m. for me. I mean, come on. Like I woke up the last day, I wanted to see the what was it, the Wu match, Wu and
Sophie,
Sufi, and
Sophie.
that match was. I mean, I was still in my third dream when that match started.
It's still REM sleeping.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
what are you gonna do?
hey, Mike, when you had to check out, we were talking about FSR. I want to get your opinion coming into the World 10 Ball. What are your thoughts on his potential of winning that event? You know, how does he break in 10? We know in 9 ball right now he's breaking as good as anybody in the world. But what about his 10 ball break? How do you think he fares? Is he going into this event as a favorite, or is it going to be a little more tough for him to get there in World 10 ball?
Well, it's not gonna be. It's if the Predator series has shown us anything, it's that traditional big breakers. That's not going to serve you very well because the majority of those guys are breaking from the side anyway because of that rack and what they get from that rack. So, um, do I like Francisco's chances? Yeah, I do. 100% I do. I think he likes his chances too. You know, in 10 ball was always the one game where it's like, oh, well, SVB's got the edge because of this, or, Tyler and his big break, or Federer and his big break. Go look at Federer, breaking from the side rail at the Pro Billiard Series. Go look at the last four guys who were there in the finals last year at the World 10 ball, and see how they were breaking. Those are not traditional big breakers. So I think it very much lends itself to Francisco. I think he's going to have all the confidence in the world. He already shows he can handle pressure. He's going to have a bullseye on his back, but he still looks like he's the one hunting out there. Yeah. I mean, I think I love the guy in that event. I do.
Why don't they
This would
just
be
get rid
just
of
like
that
a
rack?
single elimination from 32 down, right? World
What, from the
Tumble.
World 10 ball?
I think so.
I don't know.
32
Yeah.
down, single elimination.
Yeah, I think so. Why don't they just get rid of that rack? Let's just be real.
Want to get rid of what?
That rack. I mean, that rack's a problem. If you have the best 10 ball breakers in the world and they're taking the cue ball to the side rail to break 10 ball, that tells you there is a problem with that rack.
No, I mean, I think you've seen a lot of those same group of referees rack just as bad with any other rack. I'm just keeping it real when it comes to those refs. And go ask top players what they think about some of these referees who are in the circuit. I don't care if it's 9 ball or it's 10 ball, if it's this rack or that rack or whatever rack. They got nicknames for those guys.
we should do an
I'm,
anonymous
I'm, and,
hey,
and and if you think I'm lying, you can ask them.
let's do an anonymous dogging it survey where we ask them who the worst rackers in the world are out of the referees.
Let's
who do you
They
think
do it
would be
in
number
football
one?
they do it in football, with the referees. They show them on TV all the time.
Yeah.
This is the guy who won the game for this team, and this is the guy who, there's a baseball umpire Angel Hernandez, that they just, gets ridiculed every time he does a game. Yeah, I think that would be cool. Let's throw someone under the bus.
Yeah, I mean, let's evaluate their performance. Why not?
Mikey, you've been hanging around with me too long, Mike.
Let's do it. At the end of each event, we'll have a winner, semifinalists, quarterfinalists, and then we'll have a ranking for the referees and how they did. Let's do it.
Yeah. Well, it's like it's like those questions where you say, if you could only pick one player to shoot a 9-ball for you on a spot shot for $1 million, who would it be? We'll have, if you had to have one referee rack for you, the final rack on the Hill, who do you want it to be and who do you not want it to be?
I'd want it to be a player, to be honest. Like if I'm Francisco, I'd want David racking for me. I mean, I don't know. It'd be curious to hear what the pros would say.
Yeah.
This just took a turn, son. We're gonna have Ozzy on, I think later on this week, previewing the World 10 ball. I reached out to Karim also, seeing if he wanted to come on. But yeah, at the end of the day, the World 9 ball was phenomenal from start to finish.
Really was.
From the fans who were there to the product that Matchroom put out, the class of the players. I mean, you name it. Everything just seemed to be about as top shelf as you can ask for. I mean, really great job on the evolution. And I just love that there's more events coming up from that team out there because it's going to make for a great year of watching pool.
I'm really looking forward to the World 10 ball. I think it's going to be a ton of fun.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Melina, and those few things that we brought up, maybe areas of feedback. It's just that. It's just us bantering. The event was amazing. I enjoyed all the coverage. I thought Matchroom did a great job, knocked it out of the park. And like Pinozo, I'm looking forward to the World 10 Ball. Guys, if you like what we're doing, a special opportunity for you to join us on Patreon. You can check out patreon.com/dogging each day we put up a post. I'm going to share it right here. Different questions of the day. And it's normally about 15, 20 minutes of Mike and I just bantering. And then people comment on it. We try to reply to as many as we can.
About 8 minutes of that is on pool.
Yeah, usually.
It's really good.
Thanks to Joey.
Really good 8 minutes after you hear about Joey's coffee and
Sorry. Well, it gives our supporters a chance to know us a little better. Yeah. And let's just say we're a little more real on there than we are on the live show. We can afford to be because it's not going out.
And I know to keep you away from soccer fields with dry, dusty grass.
Yeah, man, you hear it up here. But it's like when we're out here, sometimes these videos. Melina, you just had a video. Tell everybody about this video you put out on Windows. You sent me the screenshot of it. The one with Efren. Tell people. It's a big milestone. I want people to hear about it.
No, I got a lot of views. That's about it. That was for me and you, not for to put all over the podcast. But
1 million. Pinozo. He had a video from Derby that has 1 million views.
Really?
Yeah. How cool is that? So look, let me tell you something, Melina. Don't be ashamed of that. Don't be shy about that, because what are we trying to do? What's our main goal? Our main goal is to grow this sport. And if 1 million eyes got on that, it wasn't 1 million pool players. There was probably a few 100,000 people in there that weren't pool players checking out that video. So that's what we need to do. So guys, we appreciate you. Thanks for joining. If you want to join us on Patreon, do that. We'd love to have you. It's going to mean a lot to us and help us to get to World 10 Ball and some other events. Big shout out to our sponsor, Seybert, and thanks for joining.